Hey, it's MOOGZ here. I'm here with Robert Good, and we're going to be talking about Robert's latest and current exhibition at Cable Depot. So Robert's going to give us a little tour.
Little demo. Yeah. Okay, well thank you for having me. So Cable Depot are hosting an exhibition called Breaking, which is a collaboration between me and the artist Richard Ducker. And the story is that we both are interested in words, text and language, but also online content and Google and the online experience. Richard, I think more from a kind of spam and fake news and slightly different angles. I'm interested in kind of the stuff that gets fed to me from Google News. Anyway, we had this idea for an exhibition that was going to be in a gallery space, and it'd be this slightly dystopian experience whereby you'd be like in a little antechamber or a little space, like a little bit like an office or maybe an interview room, but it would just be kind of all a little bit claustrophobic. So that was the starting point for it. And if you click on something like the this mouse is way too complex for me. Oh, I'm left-handed, you see.
I mean,
Yeah.
would you like me to?
You can edit this
I'll,
out.
yeah.
Oh, hey. How many points do I get for that? Okay, 360. So you can see on the 360 camera a sense of what the space is like. But originally you'd have been able to kind of visit the gallery and see the space. You've got an office chair and you've got a film running, and running around the walls are the text from the Google News headlines. But now the thing is that with the whole COVID thing coming into play, you couldn't actually get to the gallery. Nobody's allowed into the gallery. So instead of trying to make it as much about mimicking what you would see in the gallery and trying to pretend that this is the same as, we've gone the other way, and we've pointed up the fact that you never can see this space. It's one step removed to you now. So we give you 12 different ways into this experience, but none of them can replicate what you would have seen if you'd been there. And so it's pointing up all these different limitations of the online experience. So we've got a series of cameras that are like little security cameras that provide you with these limited views, a bit like being like a security person just surveilling the scene. And the video, the film that you would normally see is running there, and it runs 24/7, and the lights go off at 6 o'clock and you get the nighttime view coming on, but you can't actually experience as you're meant to. So instead, each of these views gives you a different flavour of what you would have otherwise seen. So for example, with the interview, there's Ivor, he's the gallery owner, and he would normally do an opening interview with the artist, so we'd be there and we'd be in the space talking about the work together, but that can't happen. So we had a Zoom conversation, but instead of just showing a standard Zoom, you know, we're all in our own, we wanted to see Ivor there kind of pacing around on his own in the gallery with us as these disembodied voices that you can't actually connect to. So each frame tries to highlight the ways in which this show is mediated through the limitations of digital technologies. There you go.
But what's really interesting is that like all the content and the internet itself is all about connectivity, but what we can clearly see here is a theme of separation.
Yes. That almost but not quite. Which again is becoming closer, and a lot of galleries are going completely the opposite way. They're trying to make it, you know, either a 3D immersive experience, or you can take a virtual tour, or you can put your headphones on and try to pretend that it's the same, but it's not. It can never be the same as being in the space. And so that is one of the things that we wanted to play with this opportunity to have this show.
I think what's also interesting is that this is very anti-elitism, because we have the kind of gaze of being a security guard, we as the audience are sitting at the desk at night, looking at the office, and the gallery space itself doesn't look like a gallery anymore. Now it looks like an office. So it's like reducing that classist aspect of the whole gallery culture. Now everybody's welcome here, of course. And everybody can see everybody can see the content that's gone into the art. They can see that online as well, which I find that kind of an interesting balance. This is information from the internet, which you're viewing on the internet.
Yes, yeah. In fact, funny enough, that was one of the points that Ivor made in the conversation that he had with us. He said, look, you've taken all this stuff, you've put it into a physical space, and you've lobbed it back onto the internet again, you know.
Great,
So it's kind of recycling and playing with all these ideas of the mediated content, but also the sense of slight claustrophobia that you get in terms of, so we've digitized some of the content, the voices, so that you get this sense of depersonalization, which is what is often part of the whole internet experience. It's a different type of connection that you make with people, which, I say, the nice thing was that was originally going to be the topic for the show, so this has just added another layer to it.
And in terms of that humanization, that dehumanization, in the ECT voice synthesis material, what I've really liked is that sometimes the pronunciation of some of the words is very, very human. And I was actually caught slightly off guard. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a person. So there's that journey of how computers are we're humanizing them. And the level of humanity that was in some of the sentences that are being spoken, they're very personal, but it's not a person, but it occasionally sounds like one. Could you tell us a bit about the method and the research that went into creating ECT?
So this is a collaborative project, and the original film was called Addicted to ECT, and that was put together by Richard, so he'd probably need to tell you the nuts and bolts about it. But one of the things that he does, he collects the spam messages that he gets, and the phishing messages about kind of Nigerian princes and all that type of stuff, and then he creates a dialogue out of them, which he then puts to a film, and as you say, he digitizes the voices. One's a male voice and one's a female voice, so it feels like a little bit like a conversation, but the actual content of what they're saying is nonsense, and it's through an artificial voice. And the footage that he's put it to is this mesmerizing train journey, looking out of the window into people's back gardens as the train is going along through, I think it's suburbia or out to the east coast, or I'm not quite sure. So you have that kind of double sense of the kind of the voyeur element to it, and that kind of hypnotic. I think we're both interested in that idea about how you can almost become, not hypnotized, but it becomes this wallpaper, this background to your lives that you cease to remember that it's there. The way in which we're kind of having all this content thrown at us. So Addicted to ECT, I think the title was actually a headline that he found, one of these screaming headlines about psychiatric patients being given electroconvulsive therapy and becoming addicted to it. So they actually, which, completely...
Wow.
Well, I was going to say messes your brain, but and I haven't even had it. The idea of it, but that kind of, again, it's that kind of, sense of really, what's going on here? What level are we at? So then, in the context of this show, towards the end of that film, we've overlaid some of I've animated some of the headlines that I've been collecting, and gradually the screen gets filled up with this other set of headlines that form part of the work as well. So there you go. So that's playing, and that's the red film that's on the monitor. So that's playing in the space, and that's what you would have been able to see in the space. You can now see it. It is one of the screens on of the 12, so you can actually view it, but not as you're intended to, as originally going to be viewed. So that's the film that you can then take a look at. We've also, this is a relatively new thing that we've added, a little presentation where we did a little bit of writing about the show, and we turned it into a bit like a little bit of a PowerPoint with a. I'll play you a couple of seconds of it so you get a feel for it. Oh.
Breaking, an online installation by Richard Ducker and Robert Good. According to Hito Style, in the 360-degree lens of VR bubble vision, the viewer is at the center of a sphere, yet at the same time he or she is missing.
So you're given...
To be eliminated means to be automated, and conversely, to be automated means to be eliminated. She asks, are you already rehearsing how to be your own ghost? Embedded in this pixelated excess is a shadow economy. Behind the spectacle of the image is a virtual junk space of spam, conspiracy theories, fake news and surveillance stored in giant server farms. This is the...
Okay, so you get a flavour of it, but it just kind of adds another layer of disconnect, really, to the whole thing. So there we go. So that's breaking.
Amazing.
Yeah, go on.
In terms of how you did it, how did you get the words on the wall? What's the method?
So with a lot of heartache.
I thought it looked like it might be quite a difficult job.
They're actually billboard papers, and with the marvellous benefit of hindsight, we maybe a better option would have been to paste them up, but we pin them onto the wall, so you get a billboard running around. We were going to do it as vinyl, and maybe if you had been able to see it in real life, we'd have done it as vinyl to make it kind of super tasty. But actually, we felt that we were creating almost like a little bit of a theatre set with it. And in the 360 camera view, you can actually pan all the way around to see the exit, and you can see the kind of behind the scenes element to it. So it is a construction, and so the billboard papers is another element of that. It's a kind of a wallpapering of it. But that's effectively how it was done. And likewise, the artificial grass kind of creates a kind of vivid green contrast to the red of the film, but also hints at that kind of artificiality of not being out in the open.
And taking the office outside.
Taking the office, yes, exactly. So all of those things were kind of coming into play, and it turned out, as it was, in the end, to be a great opportunity to explore these things. The fact of lockdown actually only enhanced, the subject matter that we were playing with anyway.
Absolutely. In terms of like the sentences that you've chosen and the headlines, what were the criteria that you had for inclusion? Well,
they're actually all of a particular type, and if I click the right button. So the text is available for you to have a look at, to inspect as a PDF, and they all begin what if. So what if this, what if that. So I collect headlines from the Google News feed every day, thanks, and so it's a subset of those. So there are all sorts of different subsets that you can pull out that can make for interesting content. I sometimes think of texts as being like my tubes of paint. Instead of squeezing out a nice tube of cadmium red, I'll squeeze out 6 months of Google News headlines and then use that as my material to play with. So taking then subsets of that. So what if this, what if that? That gives you that sense of kind of you're being badgered, and some of them are really serious. What if and some geopolitical big issue happens, you think, oh God, and what if climate change is, and then you get some really silly ones in as well. But soon it becomes this torrent, and you can't possibly have an informed opinion on all of these. You know, where does that leave you as a kind of informed citizen when you're just being bombarded by this constant flow of stuff that you're meant to be taking on board? So it's a subset of that, but there are lots of others that I kind of use in different situations for, you know, to try and get a different perspective on things.
And out of all of the sentences and all of the words, do you have a particular favourite sentence that has resonated?
If I were back in the space and I'd had another look round, I'd pick one out. But the thing is with this type of stuff, and this is also the way it works, is it's never the same 2 days running. You know, you pick out a different one each day, and you find, and that's the nature of clickbait. But that's the nature of it. You know, if I'll try this one on you, and if it doesn't work, next 30 seconds later they fed you another teaser. So that they're going to hit your mood, you know, sooner or later. So no, I don't. I find it very difficult to choose individual ones for that reason. It's more that the totality. The totality gives the essence of it. Any individual one you can dismiss, but the totality is what gives the effect for me, or is what I'm interested in. Yeah.
Trevor Paglen has got a show on at Pace Gallery, where it was AI based and using text from Twitter and classifying things as good, neutral, or negative, positive, neutral, negative, and essentially framing it. So for this work, I'm thinking about the sources. We've got Google. You've got spam emails, phishing emails, so basically the spam section, the junk mail, which I really like, making the junk valuable. It's a transformation. And were there any other sources that you used?
I'm just trying to think. I have a feeling for Richard's Addicted to ECT, there was a third kind of seam that he was mining for it, but it eludes me for the present what that might have been. But it was same sorts of, those were the main ones. It's the kind of detritus of, not even the detritus really, it's trying to get a handle on it. So no, but there were beyond that, not really any further sources. Not for this one anyway.
And what would be really interesting is, because this is just Google. Also thinking about DuckDuckGo search engine, Ecosia, and in fact, I mean, I used to use back in the day Hotbot, Alta Vista. Now I wonder, using What If and getting a delta across all the different search engines, which might tell you a bit about these completely anonymous internet citizens, what type of person uses each search engine.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of ways in which you can take this material or these inquiries, and a lot of directions in which you can go with it, and that's definitely one of them. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go next. I found myself I don't know if I dare admit this, but I found myself a little bit mesmerised, as I'm sure we've all been, by the Daily Mail kind of column of celebrity gossip that is on their website, which is just incredibly mind-bogglingly bonkers. And just in the last week or so, I've started collecting those with a view to seeing what comes out of that.
That is interesting. Do you know what I would love to see is taking all of those clickbait and then creating a whole kind of roster of them, putting them all, and then sorting the words in alphabetical order and presenting that. And because I wonder what words come up the most.
Yes, funny enough, we were obviously thinking down similar lines, the kind of lexicon of what is the Daily Mail kind of, and actually because in order to do, you kind of have to look at behind, and they call it puff text. You know, puff text equals X, Y, Z. So the puff text lexicon would be very interesting, as to what that. I think bikinis would be kind of quite high up on the where you could get the kind of what's the word, the frequency of occurrence of these different ones.
Wow. Yeah, I think that with those clickbait, the puff text, they have cracked a formula there, because it is compelling and people get lost in that.
Yeah.
And actually capturing like a lexicon, like a dictionary, but instead of it telling you what the meaning of the word is, it tells you how often they use it indicates how persuasive it is. So it'd actually be like a dictionary of persuasion, right, of rhetoric.
Yeah.
What is it? What is the persuasion value of a word?
And there's almost also like a grammatical formula often in terms of the way the quotes are set up and the order of the information that's given, because you've got this one sentence to hook somebody in, and what they're wearing, their age, where they were, who they're with. There's a hierarchy of what's being offered to you. So again, there are rhythms there, and this is what I mean about text kind of revealing themselves to you. So by accumulating it and then presenting it back, in a way, it's a very simple thing to be doing, but it makes apparent what is currently almost subliminal. We just take it for granted. It's this background buzz to our lives, which, and again, is a bit of fun. I'm not trying to make more of it, but just sometimes we get a little bit, you either get hooked or you get overwhelmed by it, or a sense in which it's you kind of lose control, or just the sense of the extent to which you're being played by the system. You don't even necessarily realise that the degree to which you're being drawn in.
I've had a very enlightening and slightly depressing moment about 10 years ago, where I was in a conversation with some friends and we were talking about McDonald's chicken nuggets, and I was wondering what the nutritional value of chicken nuggets was, and so I googled it. Now I'm on the McDonald's website. Now McDonald's are incredibly smart, right? 8 minutes later, I had one purpose. 8 minutes later, I found they got me. I did not know the nutritional value of the nuggets. I went there, I clicked on the page, but I was clicking all kinds of other things. And I'm like, it's like I woke up, it's like, they just completely manipulated everything that I just did. And I was slightly terrified, very impressed. Like, okay, I'm not going to mess with McDonald's.
Just eat it. It's good for you. Well, it's like trying to manage your cookie settings for Google. You're meant to have this kind of simple yes, no, reject all, thanks, right, now I'll get on with my life. Some sites, they're so they'll take they'll insist on explaining their whole policy, and if you want to see more and if you want to opt out, then you can visit this website. And 20 minutes later, oh, sod it, okay, I'll accept all,
Oh God, yeah.
It's, so it is interesting, but often this kind of world of the digital world which we live in now, and I feel very behind the curve in terms of trying to keep up with it. But my kind of take on it is exactly that, kind of being always slightly behind the curve, just trying to keep your head above water with it all.
Yeah, I think in terms of a bit of best practice from a hacker, if you have one browser, you use one browser, say Chrome or whatever it's going to be, one browser for the things that you are logged into. So your email, your social media, all that kind of thing, and then use the Tor browser for research and for going onto websites. Because then there's no cookies, they don't know what your IP address is, they know nothing about you, and you can just hit accept as much as you like. Because I'm always going through, they try to make it a bit of a labyrinth sometimes, these cookie forms. Like you try it on Instagram, try that.
I know.
Try that. I couldn't figure it out. They got me. I'm like, I don't know how to not consent to this.
Exactly.
And it's terrifying. They've got that, and but fortunately with Instagram, it's like when we were saying earlier about they keep getting me, but with adverts for things that I do actually want.
Well, well, that's what they would say. Well, they're just improving your browsing experience. You know?
And we happen to be collecting everything about
Yes,
you,
yes.
and we've got a whole profile on you
Yeah,
that, like, the
yeah.
intelligence community can just have access to
Yeah.
as well. By the way, so it's
Yeah.
like, here's your life in
Yeah.
data, and you have no control over it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh god.
But yeah, the Tor browser. Get the Tor browser for whenever you ever want to actually do any googling, using Tor. That's the way forward, because then, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. The wholesale transaction of your life to
Yeah.
these unknown companies,
Yeah.
because you don't know. This is always the thing. It's not even the website. It's who's it going to. Like, for example, there were companies that were selling location information. You can buy anonymous location information, but you better believe you can track somebody's whole life, and you can just go and buy that.
Yeah. Wow.
You just go and buy it. But I want to buy 1 million people's location history, and you can. And you can look at where they go to school, where they go to work,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
where everything. And it's
Yeah.
like, all you need to do is know where, if you know 2 things about somebody, you can turn that anonymous location
Yeah.
into real information,
Yeah.
you know. Well, and that's for sale. That's just out there, you know. And it's all retrospectively out there. It's
Yeah.
just out there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to Cable Depot then.
No, I'm
internet.
done now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going offline now.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. I'm going offline. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm taking this down this evening.
Yeah. Just print it out
Yeah.
as paper.
Yes, yeah. You can have
Yeah, and just mail it out to people.
There you go. Actually, we should do screenshots of it and give
Yeah.
those out.
Yeah, actually.
There you go. That's what it was.
Yeah, and or that's what it is,
Yeah.
because it just transforms it again. doesn't
Yeah.
it? Becomes its own thing, piece of paper.
So
So
I'll have a word with Richard about that.
yeah,
I
excellent.
might do that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, excellent. Okay, so how do we find it, and how long is it on for?
So it is at cable-depot.com. If you go to cabledepot.com, you'll be sold all sorts of
I know.
very wonderful
Yeah.
items. But cable-depot.com,
Yeah.
and it's on 24/7 until the 7th of February next year.
Awesome. Boom. All right, that was
Thanks
wicked.
so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
Perfect.